Sahana Vavatu Sahano Punaktu Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvinav Aditamastu Mavidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om, may the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. So we're studying Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga. We're on chapter 14. I've forgotten the title. Does someone have the title of what this chapter is?
Immortality, Brother Shankara.
Immortality, yes.
Page 265, that's where we were, if I'm right.
Well, I'm going to start back a little bit.
Okay.
So before we begin, are there any questions or comments that anyone would like to raise? Something that, because we want to move ahead on a firm foundation of understanding. If there's something that the Swami has been saying that isn't clear, or if there's something you'd like to add from your own wisdom or experience, please do, and then we'll go ahead. All right. What makes you weak? What makes you fear? You are the one being in the universe. What frightens you? Stand up then and be free. Know that every thought and word that weakens you in this world is the only evil that exists. I'm going to repeat that. That is such a key idea with Swami Vivekananda. Know that every thought and word that weakens you in this world is the only evil that exists. Whatever makes men weak and fear is the only evil that should be shunned. What can frighten you? If the suns come down and the moons crumble into dust and systems after systems are hurled into annihilation, what is that to you? Stand as a rock. You are indestructible. You are the self, the God of the universe. And we all should have a little desk sign that says that. Stand as a rock. You are indestructible. You are the self, the God of the universe. When the Vivekananda retreat Ridgely was dedicated, T-shirts were given to the attenders, and this is what it said on the shirt. This was what was, how T-shirts have things on them. Well, stand as a rock. You are indestructible. You are the self, the God of the universe. What does it mean you're indestructible? You're going to die, right? No, you are not going to die. This body will crumble away. This body will, as Sri Ramakrishna says, the oil and the lamp will be finished. There will be no more oil in the lamp. By that he meant the prarabdha karma is expended for this lifetime. You will not die. One of two things will happen. either because of unfinished work, continued desires, angers, aversions, whatever it is that is still a distraction for you from the truth, then you will take another body, as Sri Krishna says in chapter 2 of the Gita. This body is like a garment, you're finished with it. So that's the lunar path. You will go the path of the fathers, the lunar path, and return to human form. Very rarely do people who have attained to human form go back to a lower form. It happens, we're told. I don't know anything about that personally, of course. How would I? I'm just a person alive like you. But this is what we're told, that sometimes people go back to a lower form. But particularly people on the spiritual path. As Sri Krishna says in chapter 6 of the Gita, if you fail to achieve the goal, you will be reborn to an auspicious family. The other option is that you will go the solar path. And when this body crumbles, there will be no need to take another one. Even if there's a little unfinished business, it will be finished in the abode of the saints. So that's what the Swami means, stand as a rock, you are indestructible. And then he says, behind that, behind even this subtle form, you are the self, the God of the universe. So before we go on, is there anything that you would like to contribute about this?
I feel like this helps to live within one's perceived limitations of the spacesuit.
Yes, it does. You're absolutely right, Eric. Could you expand on that a little? Why is it that you feel that way?
Well, I don't know. Like I struggle with fatigue a lot throughout the day. So I have to figure out ways to help myself keep energy throughout the day. And it's just something I struggle with, to realize that I don't need to identify with this weakness of fatigue. I can overcome this if I realize that I am light and love and truth and divine.
Well, the Swami says it this way. Say, I am existence absolute, bliss absolute, knowledge absolute. I am He. And so you're absolutely right, Aaron. You do not have to yield to the fatigue and let it defeat you. You may have to rest. You may have to rest. I take a nap virtually every afternoon. Otherwise, I'd be kind of useless at these evening classes. This is a wearying world. There's no two ways about it. So say, the Swami says, say, I am existence absolute, bliss absolute, knowledge absolute. I am He. And like a lion breaking its cage, break your chain and be free forever. Anything else from anyone? That was very good, Aaron. Very nice.
I was just going to add that we have to keep reminding ourselves that we are human beings, not human doings. And sometimes it's okay just to be. And modern society has drilled into us that we have to keep doing something all the time.
Right, exactly. We are the divine being having a human experience, not a human being having divine experiences. We are the divine dreamer, the infinite dreamer, as Vivekananda says, dreaming finite dreams. And you do not have to drill sergeant yourself into being busy all the time. Amen. Amen. You do not. So be like a lion breaking its cage, break your chain and be free forever. What frightens you, what holds you down, only ignorance and delusion. Nothing else can bind you. What frightens you, what holds you down, only ignorance and delusion. Nothing else can bind you. You are the pure one, the ever blessed. Silly fools tell you that you are sinners, and you sit down in a corner and weep. It is foolishness, weakness, downright rascality to say that you are sinners. You are all God. See you not God and call him man? See you not God and call him man? Therefore, if you dare, stand on that. Mold your whole life on that. If a man cuts your throat, do not say no, for you are cutting your own throat. In other words, the messenger of your karma is the same divine being that is you yourself. There's a story in the gospel. A monk sees a man beating another man. It's obviously that they're totally ill-matched. And so the monk steps in to intervene. And so the one who is so angry and was beating the other man beats the monk. The monk doesn't defend himself, so the man beats him senseless, and someone runs and tells the monks from his monastery, "Oh, your man is down in the street unconscious." And so they come and get him. They wash his face and slowly wake him up, and they say, and they give him some milk to drink. And they ask him, "Well, what happened? What happened?" And he said, "He who beat me is now giving me milk." In Song of the Sannyasin, Swami Vivekananda puts it this way: praiser praised, blamer blamed are one. So, if a man cuts your throat, do not say no, for you are cutting your own throat. Praiser praised, blamer blamed are one. Welcome, Amy. When you help a poor man, do not feel the least pride. That is worship for you, and not the cause of pride. Is not the whole universe you? Where is there anyone that is not you? You are the soul of this universe. You are the sun, moon, and stars. It is you that are shining everywhere. The whole universe is you. Whom are you going to hate or fight? Know then that you are he, and model your whole life accordingly. And he who knows this and models his life accordingly will no more grovel in darkness. Now, this is an exhortation to embody the reality. Is it possible? Clearly it is, because Vivekananda himself did so. So before we go on, is there anything from anyone that they'd like to add from their own wisdom or experience, or any concern or question that you'd like to raise about this? Absolutely. I mean, this is Swamiji giving the highest wisdom to people, the highest knowledge, and saying, embody it, model your life on this, not on something less. Anything anyone would like to say about that?
Brother Shankara, this is Haima.
Yes, Ima.
As we continue our meditations regularly, as we mature, able to treat good and bad equally, this sets into our life. We start truly seeing God within us, and what Swami is saying is exactly right. That just truly is right. But it takes time to really grasp that. We have to continue to do our meditations, continue to be able to treat bad and good equally into our hearts. And those are the things slowly sets into our heart and mind and body and soul. That's what
Slowly is the operative term, right?
Exactly.
But the first thing, before the slowly can occur, I mean, it will happen to us very, very slowly if we do nothing. But when we learn to turn within, away from the world of the senses, away from the world of the 5 organs of action and the 5 organs of perception. When we learn to turn within,
Yes,
and practice what Patanjali calls pratyahara, withdrawal from all of that. Not just withdrawal from it outside, but withdrawal from it inside too, so that we're no longer yielding to the tendency to project out into the future, or remember, yes, those things will occur, but as you use the word mature, as you ripen in your practice, you see, oh, this is just another way of being involved with the world of the senses and the organs of action. I'm not actually doing it in the outer world, but I'm imagining it. And so one learns to control it.
yes.
Learning to control it doesn't mean suppressing it. It means learning to simply turn your attention from it and back to what it was that you were contemplating, concentrating on, or meditating on. So this is the process. Slowly, as you pointed out, we learn to actually do that, so that when these things that arise in us, these projections of possible futures, either frightening ones or desirable ones or painful ones or pleasurable ones, we turn our attention away from them. It isn't as if they're wrong. They're just a waste of our time. If we're going to turn our attention within, it is a waste of our time to allow ourselves to project out. And then, of course, there's always the memories, the painful memories, the pleasant memories, the memories of someone insulting us that has never been resolved, the incident with your parents when you were 5 years old, all these things.
We let it go.
Well,
we learn to let it go through
You
real
learn,
self-realization.
yes, you learn to simply turn your attention away from that and turn your attention to something else that you want to and more auspiciously give your attention to.
That's true.
So anything
Thank
else
you.
from anyone? Thank you, Haima.
As we are making progress, when we do fall down or fall back, I think having Shraddha about in the scriptures and about those that have come before that have realized, I think is a very helpful way to stay there anchored and also pray.
Yes, oh yes, both those things, dear. You're so right. Have faith in the scriptures and in the teachers. I mean, look at the life of Vivekananda, the cyclonic monk. 39 years only he lived. He was positively Vedic in his lifespan. You know, he just came and went and left, as he said, I have left enough for 1,500 years. Thank you, Swayam. Anyone else? Anything? Okay. So now we move on. Oh, I guess that was the end of chapter 13, wasn't it? Now we're moving on to chapter 14, the Atman. So if you have ever wondered to know what the Atman is, someone who knows, not from book learning, not because Sri Ramakrishna told him, but because he has had the highest realization. This is Swami Vivekananda speaking to us about the Atman. Many of you have read Max Muller's celebrated book, 3 Lectures on the Vedanta Philosophy, and some of you may perhaps have read in German Professor Dussen's book. The proper pronunciation in German is a little difficult. Professor Dussen's book on the same philosophy. In what is being written and taught in the West, in what is being written and taught in the West about the religious thought of India, one school of Indian thought is principally represented, that which is called Advaitism, the monistic side of Indian religion. And sometimes it is thought that all the teachings of the Vedas are comprised in that one system of philosophy. There are, however, various phases of Indian thought, and perhaps this non-dualistic form is in the minority as compared with the other phases. From the most ancient times, there have been various sects of thought in India, and as there never was a formulated or recognized church or any body of men to designate the doctrines which should be believed by each school, people were very free to choose their own form, make their own philosophy, and establish their own sects. Now, why is that so? Because in India, almost uniquely, there was something of this in the Greeks. And they may have learned it actually from India. The fact that each human being is unique, absolutely unique. They are all part of this infinite being, and so that infinitude brings about, as expressed in human form, absolute uniqueness of each human being. And so this is how you get to this position that the Swami just described. There is no limitation on your ability to develop your own sect, or to, though you were born into one kind of family, to move your spiritual interest and your spiritual development into some other school of philosophy or darshan. So it is one of the glories of India that this individuality and uniqueness was recognized in their not creating a homogeneous doctrinal one philosophy fits all kind of idea. There are always people in every religious body that will try to develop that and impose that. Swami Vivekananda calls them fanatics. But it's just a fact that India, I mean, how different is the Svetasvatara Upanishad from the Katha Upanishad? Remarkably different. And yet the message is the same underneath. The message is the same. But the people who spoke the one, and the man or woman who spoke the one, and the man or woman who spoke the other, utterly unique. And so their vision is unique. We therefore find that from the most ancient times, India was full of religious sects. At the present time, I do not know how many hundreds of sects we have in India, and several fresh ones are coming into existence every year. It seems that the religious activity of that nation is simply inexhaustible. It seems that the religious activity of India is simply inexhaustible. Of these various sects, in the first place, there can be made two main divisions, the orthodox and the unorthodox. Those that believe in the Hindu scriptures, the Vedas, as eternal revelations of truth, are called orthodox, and those that stand on other authorities, rejecting the Vedas, are heterodox in India. The chief modern unorthodox Hindu sects are the Jains and the Buddhists. Among the orthodox, some declare that the scriptures are of much higher authority than reason. Others, again, say that only that portion of the scriptures which is rational should be taken and the rest rejected. Of the three orthodox divisions, the Sankhyas, the Nayayikas, is that right? And the Mimamsikas. And how is the Nayayikas? Is that right?
Yeah, I never heard
Anyway,
of that, Brother Shankara.
The Sankhyas, the Nayayikas, and the Mimamsas, the former two, although they existed as philosophical schools, failed to form any sect. The one sect that now really covers India is that of the latter Mimamsikas or Vedantists, the Vedantists. Their philosophy is called Vedantism. All the schools of Hindu philosophy start from the Vedanta or Upanishads, but the monists took the name to themselves as a specialty because they wanted to base the whole of their theology and philosophy upon the Vedanta and nothing else. In the course of time, the Vedanta prevailed, and all the various sects of India that now exist can be referred to one or other of its schools. Yet these schools are not unanimous in their opinions. We find that there are, though, three principal variations among the Vedantists. On one point, they all agree, and that is that they all believe in God. All these Vedantists also believe the Vedas to be the revealed word of God, not exactly in the same sense, perhaps, as the Christians or the Mohammedans believe, but in a very peculiar sense. Their idea is that the Vedas are an expression of the knowledge of God, and as God is eternal, his knowledge is eternal, and eternally. Their idea is that the Vedas are an expression of the knowledge of God, and as God is eternal, his knowledge is eternally with him, and so are the Vedas eternal. There is another common ground of belief, that of creation in cycles, that the whole of creation appears and disappears, that it is projected and then becomes, and it is projected and becomes grosser and grosser, and at the end of an incalculable period of time, it becomes finer and finer. When it dissolves and subsides, and then comes a period of rest. So this is typically called the day of Brahma. We are some 14 billion years into approximately 100 billion years, 110 billion years perhaps. So this is not at all the end of this becoming grosser and grosser, but it is taught that that it does become grosser and grosser, and then comes a time of it being finer and finer. The terms used by physicists is anti-entropy. We're in a period of anti-entropy, when things become more complex, more specialized. Human beings are indeed very specialized creatures. The world in which we live has many specialized creatures in it, plants and animals and so on, and even more subtle expressions. So then comes the night of Brahma, entropy. Slowly and slowly things dissolve, as the Swami says, until, and of course, the astrophysicists see this as the expansion of the universe until everything is so far apart from everything else that no relationship can exist between it. So there is The relationship is expressed in various forms of vibration. So there is no vibration. No vibration means no heat. Vibration is a kind of heat. And so they say it will come to a state of absolute zero. Swami Vivekananda speaks of this as the three gunas being in perfect equilibrium. None of the gunas is active. None of the gunas is interacting with the other gunas. They are in perfect equilibrium. And within the Indian context, this is called the Night of Brahma. And it lasts, as the Swami said, an incalculable number of years. It's interesting that the Vedas and the astrophysicists approximately agree with one another about how long, at least, this present cycle, this day of Brahma, how long it will exist. Approximately 110 billion years. And so we're not even 14% into it. Lots for us to. But that doesn't mean we have to participate in that whole 110 billion years. We can ask for liberation now. And the Master has come, as it says in the evening prayer. How great was thy sacrifice, freely choosing thy birth in this prison, our iron age, to unchain us and set us free. So any comments or questions, anything from your own wisdom or experience, or any concern or question you'd like to raise?
114 billion years, that's unfathomable. Is curiosity question, the end, does it happen all at once? I mean, is there anything in the scriptures or anywhere, or is it like slowly dissolute? Is it like the Big Bang started something? Is there a reverse Big Bang or something like that?
No, apparently, and even the astrophysicists agree with this. Everything returns to its state of being information only. Stephen Hawking, the great astrophysicist, was working on this issue at the time of his leaving the body. And his findings, his speculations, very informed speculations, but nevertheless speculations because they hadn't been proven by, and many of them have not yet been proven by any experimental data. He posited that everything returns to this state of just being information. And so this is called Hawking radiation, after Stephen Hawking. So the end comes very slowly and not with there are other in between corrections, or this is what the Devi Mahatmyam is about, 4 great corrections, and we may be in the middle of a 5th, or not the middle, but the beginning of a 5th. Some scientists refer to this as this 6th mass extinction. A friend of mine in Santa Fe, New Mexico, wrote, going on 3 years ago now, that this looked like the opening of a 5th chapter of the Devi Mahatmyam, of the Chandi. So there are these violent episodes in between, but we aren't even anywhere near the halfway mark. If this measurement of 110 years is 110 billion years is accurate. And as I say, the Vedas mention a figure somewhat like that. This is what Aditya Chaturvedi told me. And the astrophysicists come up with an approximately same length of time. So it's early days in terms of, but as I said, we don't have to ride the whole thing out. We can become free. We can take the path of the saints and be liberated from having to ride this out as an embodied being.
It's very fascinating to comprehend a realm that exists outside of time and space.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That's what we're invited to by what Swami Vivekananda is teaching, and certainly by what Sri Ramakrishna was teaching. Come to that place, as you just said so well, Aaron, beyond time, space, and causation, beyond Maya. Let us look deep in thine eyes. They are bright with the wisdom of God that can wake us from Maya's spell. Anything else from anyone? All right. At the end of an incalculable period of time, it becomes finer and finer. When it dissolves and subsides, and then comes a period of rest. Again, it begins to appear and goes through the same process. The postulate, they postulate the existence of a material which they call akasha, which is something like the ether of the scientists, and a power which they call prana. About this prana, they declare that by its vibration, the universe is produced. Okay? You have a prana body, a prana kosha, pranamaya kosha. It has produced not just the universe, but the spacesuit that you're wearing, the Stardust spacesuit that you're wearing. About this prana, they declare that by its vibration, the universe is produced. When a cycle ends, all this manifestation of nature becomes finer and finer and dissolves into that akasha, which can be seen, which cannot be seen or felt, yet out of which everything is manufactured. This is a precise, very precise description of Hawking radiation. What is said about the akasha is it cannot be seen or felt, yet out of which everything is manufactured. In other words, all the information for a new cycle of manifestation exists within the akasha. All the forces that we see in nature, such as gravitation, attraction, and repulsion, or as thought, feeling, and nervous motion, all these various forces resolve into that prana. And the vibration of the prana ceases. In that state, it remains until the beginning of the next cycle. Is all that clear to everyone? I mean, these are new ideas to us. Is everyone secure that they understand what he's talking about?
I do have a question, Brother Shankara.
Yes, please.
So when one gets liberated, is it just that they no longer have to come back during that particular cycle, or is it like forever?
Dear heart, I don't know the answer to that question. I simply don't know. You might want to ask Swami Sarvadivananda that question. And if you get a good answer from him, and I'm sure you would, then please relate it to us. I don't have any sense from anything I've ever read that you would be compelled. You are, when you are liberated, you are beyond compulsion. So you would not, I can't imagine that you would be compelled to be reborn. As a matter of fact, what Swami Vivekananda says at the end of Raja Yoga, in those couple of pages where he describes what happens, is that you dissolve back into the gunas. You no longer are compelled by the gunas to manifest in any way. And so you dissolve back into what he's now calling prana, which is the sum of the three gunas. The prana would be seen as the sum of the three gunas.
Namaste, Brother Shankara.
Yes,
This
sure.
is Shailesh here. I read this, the question which Swam is asking, and the explanation I've read, and that the explanation is that once you are liberated in this whole creation, cycle of creation, you are liberated forever. You do not come back in that cycle. But now once that cycle is dissolved, everything, like you said, is merged into consciousness. So there is no individuality again. So whoever you are already merged. So now a new set of jivas are created from that in that new cycle. So you're not that. So it's just like water. If a drop of water goes and mixes into an ocean, that drop is not there anymore. But someone, if picks up that same amount of water, then it's a different, it's a different jiva. I think it's a little of over-engineering here, but that's what it is. That's what I've read about it.
Thank you, Shailesh. That's a great contribution to this discussion. And I love the metaphor of the drop of water going into the ocean. That's very like what Swami Vivekananda says at the end of Raja Yoga. You simply disappear into the Akasha.
Yeah. True.
So thank you. That was good.
Thank you.
So I'll repeat what the Swami said. All the forces that we see in nature, such as gravitation, attraction and repulsion, or as thought, feeling, and nervous motion, all these various forces resolve into that prana, and the vibration of the prana ceases. The gunas in equilibrium. In that state, it remains until the beginning of the next cycle. Prana then begins to vibrate, and that vibration acts upon the akasha, and all these forms are thrown thrown out. All these forms are thrown out in regular succession. And this is very nicely described by the modern physicists and astrophysicists as the Big Bang And, the Big Bang doesn't result in a thing. It results in a form of energy called plasma, out of which everything slowly condenses. So this is what the Swami says. All these forms are thrown out in regular succession. The forms appear as the plasma cools. Okay. The first school I will tell you about is styled the dualistic school. The dualists believe that God, who is the creator of the universe and its ruler, is eternally separate from nature, eternally separate from the human soul. God is eternal, nature is eternal, so are all souls. Nature and the souls become manifested and change, but God remains the same. According to the dualists, again, this God is personal in that he has qualities, not that he has a body. He has human attributes. He is merciful. He is just. He is powerful. He is almighty. He can be approached. He can be prayed to. He can be loved. He loves in return, and so forth. In one word, he is a human God, only infinitely greater than man. He has none of the evil qualities which men have. He is the repository, this is a quote, he is the repository of an infinite number of blessed qualities. That is their definition. That is their definition. He cannot create without materials, and nature is the material out of which he creates the whole universe. There are some non-Vedantic dualists called atomists who believe that nature is nothing but an infinite number of atoms, and God's will, acting upon these atoms, creates. The Vedantists deny the atomic theory. They say it is perfectly illogical. The indivisible atoms are like geometric points without parts or magnitude, but something without parts or magnitude, if multiplied an infinite number of times, will remain the same. Sri Ramakrishna spoke of this as having an infinite number of zeros. They mean they are nothing until you put the one in front. So you can have all of the zeros that make up 100 million, but until you put the one in front, those zeros signify and add up to nothing. So you can add them and they still create nothing. You put the one in front and suddenly you have 100 million. Anything that has no parts will never make something that has parts. Any number of zeros added together will not make one single whole number. So if these atoms are such that they have no parts or magnitude, the creation of the universe is simply impossible out of such atoms. Therefore, according to the Vedantic dualists, there is what they call indiscrete or undifferentiated nature. And out of that, God creates the universe. Now, the physicists would hear those words, and if they were open-minded, they would hear plasma. Indiscrete, there's nothing discrete about the plasma. It is except for being somewhat cooler and somewhat hotter in some places, just by tiny little amounts. It is not in any way differentiated. So there is what they call indiscrete or undifferentiated nature, and out of that God creates the universe. The vast mass of Indian people are dualists. Human nature ordinarily cannot conceive of anything higher. We find that 90% of the population of the earth who believe in any religion are dualists. All the religions of Europe and Western Asia are dualistic. They have to be. The ordinary man cannot think of anything which is not concrete. He naturally likes to cling to that which is he naturally likes to cling to that which his intellect can grasp. That is to say, he can only conceive of higher spiritual ideas by bringing them down to his own level. Now, the Swami is not judging here. He's not saying these are bad people. There's anything wrong with them. He's simply observing a fact. And I think that should be made clear. There's no judgment, no opprobrium, no, there's something wrong with these people. No, that's not it at all. This is just how they are. That person can only grasp abstract thoughts by making them concrete. This is the religion of the masses all over the world. They believe in a God who is entirely separate from them, a great king, a high, mighty monarch, as it were. At the same time, they make him purer than the monarchs of the earth. They give him all good qualities and remove the evil qualities from him, as if it were ever possible for good to exist without evil, as if there could be any conception of light without a conception of darkness. So this is where the Swami says, this is where he if you remember, he introduced this by saying, this is illogical. And this is why it's illogical. With all dualistic theories, the first difficulty is how it is possible that under the rule of a just and merciful God, the repository of an infinite number of good qualities, there can be so many evils in the world. This question arose in all dualistic religions, but the Hindus never invented a Satan as an answer to it. And of course, both of the religions of the book are there, as they're called, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all have this Satan. But if we look closely, we'll see that Christ himself never taught this. He taught a non-dual. Christ's teachings are, I and my Father are one. And then he goes on to say, I and my Father are one, that is to say, the vine. I am the vine, ye are the branches. So you are one with me. The vine and the branches are inseparable. And he is rooted in that one. He is rooted in the unmanifest. And so he is the vine made manifest, and we are the branches. And if you listen carefully to his teachings, you'll see that it is non-dualism that he teaches. Though he does have parables, like the parable of the prodigal son, that appear to be dualistic. What it says is that the one in manifestation will welcome you if you return to your spiritual home and come to understand that you are one of the branches, which is how the, so to speak, Father always sees you. Any comments or questions? All right. It's just a minute after 9. Any comments, questions, discussion at all? Anything that anyone would like to add from their own wisdom or experience, or any comment or question you'd like to raise? All right. Well, yes, Swam.
Yeah, I was just going to say that somewhere earlier in the chapter, we read about some sects excluding reason into the mix. I think that probably leads to a whole lot of superstition.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely. And it's terribly dangerous and is very vulnerable to priestcraft. Because the priests can then, if they don't have to be within reason, they don't have to be rational, they can promise you anything in exchange for your money and your allegiance. And they do, not just in India, but wherever there are priests, whether it be the priests of Roman Catholicism selling indulgences, or the priests of the Andes burning children as sacrifices to guarantee successful crops. You know, priestcraft can get in where reason doesn't have to prevail. It can get very nasty indeed. And this is, of course, why people like the Buddha arise. At the time the Buddha arose, the spiritual traditions of India had become absolutely encrusted with this priestcraft and superstition. And so he just set all that aside. And as Swami Vivekananda said, preached what is essentially a perfect karma yoga. And then on the other hand, you have an Adi Shankaracharya who, instead of just preaching Advaita, challenged every other leader of any other sect to a debate and defeated them in the debate. And so systematically purified Indian spiritual tradition by doing that. And again, one can see this as the divine presence, dealing with the divine presence, and bringing it to sanity. Anything else from anyone? All right, dears. Om Asatoma Satkamaya. Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Abhirabhir Moiti. O Lord, lead us from this realm of noisy confusion and misunderstanding to thine abode of silence, serenity, and understanding. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through. Light us through and through with thy everlasting shining presence. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga Durga Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may we go forward in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. So that's it for the week. On the weekend, of course, we'll take up Swami Prabhavananda's, on Saturday, we'll take up Swami Prabhavananda's talks in Realizing God. And then in a echo of what you've been hearing this evening, this Sunday the talk's title is Nature is for the Soul. So there you are.
Brother Shankara, thank you.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night. Dear.
Namaste. Thank you.
See you again soon.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.